There we go. Okay. So, back to this. Okay. So, the thing with this is it is code I've already written. I've written a bunch of code. This is actually the second revision of code overall. So, that's where this guy is. I'm using SQLite as my database and Python 3.5 as the language. And basically, what it's doing in the grand scheme of things is there's two classes that I've made, one an editor and one's a writer. And they're basically fighting each other on how English is written. And how it does that is it reads books from the writer and the editor both read the same books. And when they do that, they're parsing the data to get the information out. And once it gets the information out, then it calls back and presents itself, I guess. Or it gathers the data and puts it into the database. There we go. I also have some checks in case I have an issue and I have more data than what I really should be. Then I can make it write sentences. The editor will grade those sentences, and then the grades will be posted back up or given back to the writer to actually tell the writer where it can improve. And the editor does something very similar. It reads, but it's looking for grammar structure. And then when it reviews, it adds some grades to that grammar and it updates. The update function for the editor is kind of not the best in my case, is because when it updates, it's updating based on if it sees the same grammar structure from before. Sadly, it really doesn't. And that's one area that I want to fix. Also, the slowness between reading a database and not. But right now, you all want entertainment, and I'm going to give you it by going down here, bringing that guy back up, and showing you all some of the sentences it's created. I've been training it basically all weekend, so I've been training it off and on the week before, so. And this, it won't be training, it's kind of just writing it up, so. I begun to fear a little girl who waited upon by some ocean. Again, it's not the best in not content. Like connecting all of it into an actual story. It's kind of just randomly picking words. And the main thing with this right now is to pick words in such a way that it forms a good sentence. Like this one isn't too bad. The girl waiting upon is something. Continuity. Yeah, continuity. Yeah, I can't pronounce anything. Yeah. So that's the thing. It's lacking. I have a pseudo algorithm that I might wrap over all of this to train it on that, but for right now, it's not doing too bad. So the pseudo algorithm that I'm talking about is I wanted it to basically take every word of these, and whenever it's generating the next word, check if it hasn't used this word lately, because then that kind of ties into an overarching thing. The only downside to that is it doesn't really show an end. It doesn't have a beginning, middle, and end. And that's where I'm kind of looking into how to fix that better so that it does have that. But if we say no, it will generate another one. This was the most intimate friend of the Emperor to be of any other person. So another problem it is, and I'm planning as it trains, it'll get better at, is it really likes these two words, and anytime it can use them, it will try. Which has made really fun run-ons as it defines of the. So hopefully we won't see that, but I've been training it off and on. The only downside is not only does the write time take a little longer as the sentence gets bigger, the editing time takes so long. Like, after we get done with this, all the sentences it's written is going to go into the editor after I say yes. And it's just going to edit for, like, hours. And I'm trying to figure out how to fix that. Hopefully, that'll be this week. I wanted to see the Emperor had come to the window, but I have never been able to do something, for this is a great hurry, muttered to himself, and in a direction in which the old prince was at the time that the moon would be the most remarkable story. End quote without a beginning of a quote. That is actually one of the reasons why I started this model of the AI, is because I wanted the beginning and ends of quotes to get better, and I've seen it get better with this one compared to the previous one where it was kind of just straight up random all the time. I have never been in the presence of an hour later. Our trunks were ready. That's an interesting way of putting that. And if you all want, I can increase... Actually, now that I think about it, there's no way for me to stop this without editing. So if you all want, I can kind of make it where I can do longer stories if you actually want to see, like, what does this look like when it writes a paragraph. But for now, it's just writing a single sentence, or what it believes is a single sentence. So let's see what we get. I have had a letter to the Commander-in-Chief. So, I'm going to talk about this because you all love, especially on my streams, me talking about, like, my personal history and stuff. I have had is apparently a really weird thing people say. And I didn't know this because I say this, like, all the time. In various conversations, not like I say it out of content. And I've always felt like it's a normal way of saying it. But I've had friends who go, I've never heard anyone say that. That and, what is it? I promise you, I believe. I'll say, like, I promise you, comma, and then what I am, like, promising the person. And they'll be like, that's not a normal way of saying that. And I'm like, okay. Or no, promise me. Not I promise you. Promise me. I'll be like, promise me I'll go to the store tomorrow. And they'll be like, okay. I saw a little old man who had come to the Emperor. Had been sent to all the way to the edge of the world. And when the moon is not a thing as grow and kind of cut that sentence off. It was just like, yep, we're good. But all the way to the edge of the earth, or at the edge of the world, reminds me of The Gods Must Be Crazy, which is a great movie. It's an old movie, but it's a great movie. I dare say I should not be a good while. That's actually a decently good sentence. I can't find too many faults on that. So the reason why there's two AIs other than just editor is when I made the original one, I had no grading scheme other than me giving that feedback. And unless I did this, like, constantly, I wouldn't be able to give it enough feedback fast enough and consistently enough to really train it. So I wanted to remodel it so that the feedback kind of constantly comes, which I think helps, because now I can like go to the store and just leave this thing running and it will learn over time, or not learn. That's the thing. That's the downside, is it's technically an AI teaching an AI. So if an AI doesn't want to teach the other AI correctly, both of them will go further apart. Pierre did not think that I was to go and see the Emperor to address him. Another decently good sentence. Now remember, it's not learning anything from these previous sentences. It's still just generating sentences from what it learned before. I have seen a great deal more than once. He had not been a sort of thing you say is perfect true, or is perfectly true. That one is not good in any way. Also, if you all want, I can kind of go over the code some more if you are interested in that. Alright, let's do this again. I saw a lost sum. Beautiful AI. I saw a large sum of the ocean. Not a small part of the ocean. I saw the large summation of the ocean. I will not be a bad temper, for she hadn't ever been to see what was going to the door. For she had ever been. Yep. Also, with this AI, I remade it so that the writer, how it understands English is it reads two words and then guesses what the third word should be. Alright? Yeah. It reads two words, guesses what the third word should be. Before, I had it read three words and guess what the fourth word should be, primarily because I thought that would actually increase grammar, which it did, but it was an artificial increase. It wasn't like it was learning grammar, it was just it had a stricter data set, a smaller data set, so it wrote more plagiarized text than this version. This version, I haven't been able to copy and paste any of these texts and get it to give me a book back that I know I put in. It has given me books back, but not any that I actually put in. I went to the window, and she felt that he would have been able to get the better of it. Not bad. I mean, a little bit more content, and it might have been a decent sentence. I have never been in it, and the only one who was a small room on the tiptoe with a smile. Going a little abstract, rooms not only have toes, but they can be on their tiptoes, and they can have smiles. Yay. If you all have any questions on like how this is working or what other opportunities I could put it in, just say it. I went to the edge of the ocean. That is a great sentence, actually. I mean, I guess if you saw the large sum, the next viable option is go to the edge of it. I also don't have to type N. I'm just kind of differentiating so I know where the sentence is. Ooh, long sentence. I saw a large number of other people, and if you had been in the air in the midst of a very small, and so, I'll tell you, for I was a long time, and I have seen the three of them, and the rest of the earth, and fall into the room. Again, I don't know if this is part of English or if it's part of my algorithm, but it seems like the longer you try to make a sentence flow, the more likely it's not of good grammar. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I would not be able to see what was going on in the house for a very pretty sitting room, lately fitted up with a smile at the end of the ocean. So apparently, if we're going to try to build a story out of this, they live in a personification house. That sitting room is near the edge of the ocean, or near the end of the ocean, which I would say is near the edge. Put on my glasses. I'm having ear issues with my glasses, so let's see what we get. And the chance of re-seeing the same sentence twice would be incredible. I have not the same as the first day of his life, and the two gentlemen from the other half to carry out his hand, and a half a mile from the genius Scrumble with blue hair. End quotes with no beginning quotes again. Hopefully, I'm hoping that it learns that that's a bad thing. I also wasn't expecting of the, and all that to become such a strong thing for the AI, so I'm hoping that that dies down over time. Sorry. The writing algorithm does take a little longer as it writes more, so if I do plan to expand it or even like write pages or even a book one day with this, it's just gonna be like, right, okay, I'm gonna go get my tea from China before I come back, and it still won't be done. This is the same instance that I have. This is going to be a super fun one to read and not mess up. This was the same instance that I have never heard of the projectile. Was still a great deal. Breathe. Grew excitement when he saw that he would have been at all of them for a long time, and I tell you, the whole matter decides what Willoughby's intentions were. In all its bearings, I have never seen the Count of Maria de Vienna and the doctor had to be at an end to all the time when I was going to grip myself, reconstruct exactly what I think of what had been in a low voice. He had been in the midst of the very pretty and rosy, his white plump hat tilted to one of the crowd that filled his heart. Now that last bit of that sentence sounds a little too good. So I'm just gonna quickly steal it, and I'm gonna generate this so when I get back there's a sentence. Well, look, a sentence already. No, that is original, or at least to Google. Google does not say that there's any direct text to that, which is incredible. I love it, because to me that kind of makes sense. This little part right here kind of makes sense, because when I think about it, it's like this guy is like in like a bar, like a ballroom or something, or at some party, and he has his hat perfectly tilted to the one who fills his heart so that they can't easily see him. And I just imagine him slowly turning his hat as he walks around the room, making sure it's always tilted. Pierre did not see the end of the ocean because he was blind, and he did not. 10, we found the best sentence. I think we can't get better. Mr. and Mrs. Just, that's it? How? I know how. So, one of the things it uses to determine if it's at the end of a sentence is end of sentence characters. A period is an end of a sentence character. The downside to that is Mr. and Mrs. have periods in it. And I cannot figure out an easy way to determine if it's Mr. and Mrs. or end of sentence. And I haven't figured that out. So if you have any ideas how you all would be able to determine that just with text, I would love to hear it, because if not, it's possible Mr. and Mrs. will be a great sentence in a book one day. If I ever get this to write books. If I get this to write books, I would be happy. I actually do have somebody who wants me to write a paper on this and, like, publish it, so. Okay, let's see. I will not be too late to be so, and that he would have been at work on his way to the window, and I have heard of the crowd were suddenly heard saying, and the new view said, it is a very pretty and sweet and gentle smile. No end quotes, but at least there's a period and it begins with a quote, so I can pretend like that was the end of the quote. Kind of a weird direction on what said that. A new view. It's kind of abstract, I guess. I also gave it books from various genres and various story writings, even like a textbook. Just to see, like, can it process it? And I find it really funny because my end goal application is this is given to something that's highly trained to one specific thing. So, like, example I give to many people where I've shown this, horror. You give it, like, 8 or 9 horror books, and it writes only horror books. But I gave it, like, multiple books from various things. Even, like, childhood lullabies and stuff. It was really interesting when I was testing, because I kept giving it the 3 Little Pigs. Very good book if you want something that's, or a very good story if you want something that's somewhat repetitive, but not completely the same thing over and over again. I wanted to know what to do, and they were all in his eyes, and a half from the moment when the moon was high. Oh my gosh, I really should have found books that I could easily read the words to. Commendations to which the troop would be to me. Again, I can't wait until I get this finished to the point that I'm, like, really happy with it, because I would love to actually see a rough story this would write. But right now I'm just training it to learn grammar. I dare say I should not be a man with a smile. I should not be a man with a smile. Frowns are the only way to go in my life. I went to the door. I'm done. I just peaced out. I went to the door. I just imagine it, like, telling this at, like, a club. It was like, what did you do next? I went to the door and left. Just disappeared. So this is my life for, like, the last week and a half or so. I went to the commander of the lunar disc. Well, it was not very easy guided that his mother and sister had been left to be taken to the ground, was more than 1,000 times during the night, was dark in the evening, and I was in the presence of a new life without her. So, I'm predicting, extend this into a story, this main character, I, went to the commander of the lunar disc. But he was not very easy guided there because his mother and sister recently have left to be taken to the ground, quote unquote, more than 1,000 times a night, which is insane how often his mother and sister just keep coming back and from the ground. Um, but now it's dark in the evening, and he's having to live with the presence without her, which kind of leads into some really messy relationships with the mother and the sister were kind of the same person, but it's a very interesting story to be written out and expanded upon. Also, if any of you are writers, these are all free to take if you want to use them as like a writing prompt to extend your writing any. I should put that in the description when this is done. Just be like, all of this is writing prompts if you also choose. I saw a little and indulged myself in the direction in which the French, and had a great deal of talk with her. And she was a young man. She was a young man, and half foot, half feet, and a half feet of the ward, but she was not so much so. She was not so much as I have been quite applied, defined as cold-blooded vertebrates with a sigh. Do I got crack? I don't have crack. I don't do drugs, so I have no clue even how to get crack. So I'm sorry, naughty SpongeBob. My AI isn't on drugs. It's just it's learning English in a very poor way. By not knowing English and reading books as if it knew English and then guessing at what it thinks English is. Luckily, it's not homophobic. I mean, she was a young man. It's pretty progressive right there. No, I don't got kids. Sorry. I will not be a fine figure of a very pretty sitting room, lately fitted up and down the street. Okay. So, okay, why does everyone want to know me if I got stuff? If you all wanted, I could have just videotaped my, refrigerator. It's very empty. I have a very empty refrigerator. No, I don't really have time for that. I'm doing a live stream here, guys. I don't have time to talk about other things other than my live stream. Okay, everyone is getting me with the gots. Guys. So many. Come on. There we go. I have not a single armed foe remains on the day of his life. By carrying with me, I will tell you what I have had a long time, and then the Nautilus was traveling at a speed of an hour or more of all your own children in presence of the ocean. Okay, guys. I don't get what you all wanting to do with all the gots, but hey. As you can see with the Nautilus, I did give it 20,000 Legions Under the Sea, so that's one of the many books. So I think that's the only way I'm hoping. This was the last two syllables. No, it wasn't! It was not the last two syllables! That is an interesting sentence, though. This was the last two syllables. I like that. That, I think, is perfect. I wish I could be like, yes, more of this. Of course, the AI would be like, you want more of this one line and only this one line, which would have been horrible. Pierre did not wish to see that the old prince was at this moment the huge house was one of the lunar attractions over the whole of the new moon shone. In all the time I have not the smallest details of the ocean. Okay, I'm gonna start. Guys, if you are going to be I guess the best word is, if you are going to be hijacking the chat, I am going to manage you. And I will just, I mean, I'm perfectly fine with just putting people in timeout forever, and then if you continue, kicking you out and removing you from the stream completely. Because I enjoyed doing this, but I'm perfectly fine spending time. I'll even, if you all want, I'll put you up on here and you all can watch me just delete them over and over again. So, but I enjoy what I'm showing here. If you all don't, please leave, because I do this for my enjoyment and the people who actually enjoy this. So, I just wish it was faster. That's my only real issue right now. So, if you can make this faster, I would love it. Oh, there we go. I dare say I should like to have a few days later. It reappeared brighter still from the genius. Oh. Latin is a really fun language. Have anyone ever really tried Latin? It's a super enjoyable language. I am glad that in the past people put all types of letters right next to each other. I'm not even gonna try. The genius Caro formed in a succession of sharp teeth, covered with a smile that she could not see. The people is unconditionally transferred to the same moment in the direction of the two friends had already gone by without our notice. For a few minutes later we encountered the ice bank. The ice bank was subsided in long breaths of the world, and when she was not that, I had not yet seen my friend's prediction was fulfilled. That is an interesting statement overall. Again, I think longer sentences just fall apart over time. So, yay! I don't want to artificially limit a sentence, because I think the longest sentence ever published in English is like 837 words, so I don't want to be like, no, you can't do that because that's bad, because you can. Apparently there is good writing that you can do. It's a hit and miss. Do I limit it manually, or do I hope the AI will learn? And I have to kind of trust, and it's a weird trust-hate relationship. I trust my AI, but it just hates me, so. This was the only one of the new astrolabes, well-nigh pushed, but my own part. I walked along the line, and the man who had the best of the word, and therefore could not understand what was going on in the direction in which the French had not seen the previous night. That's not necessarily bad. Like, it's completely out of context, but or concept. I have no clue, but it's not a bad sentence. This is a bad sentence. I can just tell by the last few characters. I dare say I should think he is in the midst of the Emperor Alexander has dispatched him on the first place. He was doing something desperate. Desperate. Oopsie. So, I've never seen the young man of great merit, comma, end quotes. If it had a quote at the beginning, it wouldn't be too bad. The comma's kind of breaking it, but again, I actually am planning to talk to somebody who does natural language processing for like a research firm to really figure out how to do the natural language processing better, because I think my grammar is not gonna get up. So I'm kind of lacking trust with my editor. But at the same time, I trust my editor into like getting better stuff. So hit miss. I have seen the same feelings of the ocean. Kind of a druggy trip kind of thing right there. I've seen the feelings of the ocean. I mean, hey, who knows? That character could be a little wacky. This was the most beautiful of women and children, who looked at her with a slight bow, turned again into the room. I don't know who her is. It seems like her is a third-party person, and these beautiful women and children are walking by her, kind of. They're walking towards her, bowing, turning around, and like going back into the room they came from. Or turning either left or right and going into the next room. So, interesting culture, I guess, is building. I want to see that I have the same kind of voice saying in a reply, but could not. That's a fine sentence right there. I mean, kind of creepy. One of the creepy things that I've been knocking back in my head is Facebook actually had a chat AI that they were having chat to each other, and they say it created its own language that it was communicating back and forth with before they shut it down. And I'm kind of just like, I wonder if this will create its own language that it will communicate back and forth with. I don't think it will, but who knows? Skynet, this might be the beginning of Skynet. You all might get a preview into how Skynet works. Who knows? Do-do-do-do. I will not be so easily have taken a room with a smile of a very pretty and soft, but she was very much surprised at the bottom of the water and the rest of the world, and when he had not known him a few days later, the thermometer always, and do not think it is not to see his face. That was, I think, the first one, once I got into this, that I've struggled with. That is a really bad sentence. Like, horribly bad. I saw a little girl who had come from the other half green. That's not necessarily too bad. I mean, I question what this other half green is, but the little girl came from it, so unless it's a horror story, it's a decently good thing. If it's a horror thing, then maybe we should not trust her. I dare say I have not seen him so much as a man of the world, and when he saw the beautiful Helen here, whom it had not seen him, so that the old prince had gone to the ground with the first place, because he had been told that the whole world I have been here while we were in the air, full of the ocean. At the beginning, that actually was not a bad sentence, but as it progressed, as this AI progresses and guys, if you all can help me not get this sentence again, I'll be happy. Because this is quite shocking that I'm getting it so often. Because guess what the AI is going to do? The AI is going to go, this is a good sentence. and starts using it more and more often until it's everywhere. And then every sentence is going to be Mr. and Mrs. And there's nothing else. Just Mr. and Mrs., Mr. and Mrs., Mr. and Mrs. So if you all can tell me a good way of fixing that so it doesn't have that issue, I would love to know. This was the most beautiful creature in the direction of the ward, but I'm sure for my own private purse. So apparently this main character who we've been adventuring with has a purse, their own private purse, that has beautiful creatures in all the directions of the ward. Just inside their purse though. Just all the directions inside their purse. Maybe that's one direction. I have not yet made demands on the first to catch the principal play of the ward. The more he tried hard to think of nothing, but the more he tried to be an easy chair, with his back and forth. The ball would be the end of the old prince, was in a low voice to miss. So that is actually interesting because it kind of triggered in my mind old creepypasta I used to read once. Or did I read it? Was it a creepypasta? It was some story, but it was basically the idea as soon as you try to think of nothing, nothing is unthinkable. Because as soon as you try, you're thinking of something, which is nothing. I saw a large number of the ocean. Man, whoever I is, they must be like a sailor or something, because they just, the ocean here, the ocean there, I've been to the end of the ocean. I saw a large number of the ocean. I want to know what I should not be the most favored points for you. Again, that's less of a good story and more of a creepy thing from an AI that uses points to grade itself. Should I shut it off, guys? Is this Skynet? Is this the end? Turn off the computer or yank out the cords. Home of the crowd of people who had been so kind and generous, as it is a very pretty and sweet. Stop, dear Madden, I entreat. Play, Uncle. I like how it's like Uncle with quotes, like play, Uncle. But it got the quotes right. I'm happy. It kind of just jumped in the middle of another dialogue, but hey. We each have our own little things. I have never seen a man who had been a most agreeable sort, for it is not in the midst of a large number of For it is not in the midst of a large number of the crowd of people who had come in a low blow when she saw him sitting there, visible to you. Okay, I think my AI has gotten drunk and has just went off the rails with this sentences. It wasn't too bad, but now it's writing a lot longer sentences and going, is this right? And we're just going, no, you're wrong in so many ways. I have never been in the habit of spreading a large number of people in the midst of this new force, consists for the purpose of marriage between their stony knees, trees sprung up and down the hill, and drove for some time in her hand. Okay. Apparently it really likes a large number of people. Either a large number of crowd of people or just the large number of people. So I think we've gotten to the point where we've reached the main hub in our story, where everyone is. I have not yet known all about the house, and so he was the same kind of a very few minutes later. We were in the air of a very few minutes later. The man was a very few of them. To the window! The third day after leaving Moscow, Karavia again fell into the room, to be of use in staying another minute. So I think we've reached the kidnapping part of our story, and it also repeated a few minutes. I think it's hinting that it's gotten tired a few minutes before this, so it's just like, I give up. I'm writing whatever I want. We're just gonna keep going. I will not be more than the other half upon our way to the window, and watch the white rabbit, who said, in a way of life and activity, of a very good thing, we shall see the count who was sitting at the same thing. That wasn't too bad. It was a decently grammarly correct. It just wasn't very involved in the story. Come on, there we go. I wanted to be of any use to the window. And the same moment the travelers had left the room, in a few minutes later, a large number of people who had been brought forward by some invisible jack impinged upon them with a smile. So I think we're actually getting the creepy pasta horror story, because now we gain a large number of people who are just brought forward by an invisible jet, and all of them are smiling. So, I think we're getting creepy a little here. Again, if you all have any questions on how this is working, or what you all would like to see to expand upon this, I am all for playing around with this some more. I've had a great deal of talk with her, to the edge of the crowd of people who had just passed his pew, on the point of view of the United States of the Emperor, to be very happy to hear it's talked of. So another story I gave was it's a story called The Anthem, and I've also gave it the Gettysburg Address. So, United States of the Emperor is what came out of that. So, I hope you all don't mind living in Emperor. Because we are part of the United States of the Emperor. I dare say I owe you an idea of a very pretty and fresh air and water, with a black pepper Peter's knife in his mind. Yep, this is a horror story. Apparently, we might not know who the killer is or what room they are in, but my money's on 10. The Black Peter's knife was founded in the dead man's mind. And now we're playing Clue. So, you all tell me what area we're in, and I'll give you the weapon. I don't recall ever playing Clue, so I actually don't know how all the rules work. I just know you guess items, or you guess location, or whatever, but I don't know how, like, you play with the other players. I went to her, that she was a little girl who had gone to the left, but if you have a little more than a few days later, the man to whom he had never seen a great deal of talk with you. My dear fellow, I was about to go with you as a result of the projectile. Was nothing in the air of a very pretty canal, and everyone of the crowd in the presence of the ward, but I'm sure for my part, I think it would be the most favorable points for you. Oh my gosh. I'm pretty sure at one time I played Clue. It's a popular game, and I remember aspects of Clue that kind of hint that I should have played Clue at least once in my life, but I don't recall ever, like, I don't recall who I was with or what I was doing at that time, but whatever. But we've run into a unique problem, I guess, is it really likes this one sentence. I think it would be the most favorable points for you. Which I don't know what books that could come out of. So I'm gonna just stick it into my Google machine and see what Google gives me. The first link is 20 most asked interviewed questions. None of them are in relationship to a book. So that's how you should answer your interview questions. Just, how do you feel about this position? I think it would be the most favorable points for you. Just all the time, that's how you answer interview questions. I'm done. I've helped you all with your job hunting abilities. You all can be happy. As to the little princess and cousin, Catherine Simonora, Noea, or whatever. Just, again, I need to figure out how to get the quotes right, and I can't do that. I heard a sound of his life and death. That is a pretty good sentence. That's kind of like, I heard a sound of his life and death. So, like, I heard him alive and dead at the same time. That is pretty interesting and kind of creepy. I would not want to know what that sounds like. I'm guessing you're saying agreed to not hearing that sound. Or maybe you didn't. I don't know. I don't know how fast this updates, so you all just saying one word doesn't help me in reference of when you all said it. I saw a large number of the projectile. Will have the pleasure of being a perfectly natural thing, in the midst of which he had been in the midst of a whole day or two. And she was in her own room. She was in the air and water, had been to the window, and I have no doubt of it. I have no doubt of it. I think my AI should have a lot of doubt on that sentence. Can't wait until the editor gets hold of that and goes, I doubt you. I doubt you a lot. Yeah, it was a good sentence. I liked it. Actually, I liked it enough. I think it's worth a Google search. So let's Google search this thing. I should actually, I should open up Google in such a way that I can quickly access it so that I'm not spending too much time Google searching. So, the first link it showed was Macbeth, but it doesn't show the exact quote, and it doesn't show anything similar to the quote. So, I think it's good. I do like how the second link is Life and Death, 1,000 songs everyone must hear. Because it just relates to sound, and I like that. So now, fun times with me trying to read a very complex sentence. I will not have the same thing, had to go to the little princess, was unable to understand the importance of the old prince, had aged during the night, in the way to the window, was a man should possess all knowledge, that the prince that if he had not the same instance of the sun, and you have no doubt that the whole matter was allowed to remain at Ball's Hill, and had no more than a mile and a few days, I know you have a few moments. He asked his opinion, and then, before his eyes and the day, he had been told that the old prince, favor for which he had been told that the moon will not be the last of the world, but she was not at all the time when I looked at her with a smile of a very pretty and soft and white. So the moon is female, guys. That is what that sentence is telling me. The moon is classified as a female, and she will not be the last of the world. She just will not. And you can look up at her with a smile, as long as it is very pretty, soft, and white. If it's not those, don't do it. Just no. You don't want to know what happens. I don't know what happens, but we just know it's not a good thing. I dare say he is the most interesting and unusual case. If those symbols at the end of the sentence wasn't there, it would actually have been a good sentence. I like it. It sounds like a detective, like, working on a case, and he's like, I dare this case is the most interesting and unusual. Or a doctor. I guess a doctor could do that. Really, anyone with a case. But I feel like detectives always do that. Pierre did not see the Emperor to be a very glad. You have no more than once. He had not the smallest objection to his own person. The very first thing he saw, the two of them had been in the town this winter. Other than the quote not actually beginning, it's not too bad of a sentence. It's not too good, but it's not too bad. Give me a quick second. I'm getting bloop bloops. Okay. Apparently, one of my friends is sorry for not seeing my stream, I guess. I have no clue. Okay. Rip. Wrong link. Opened up a YouTube video. Gotta love that. It was like, whoops, wrong tab. Music's playing. Okay. So now, let's see what we get here. I wanted to see what was going on. I wanted to see what was going to be so good as a man to his feet, and he had not been able to keep the two ladies to reject the offered olive branch. I mean, it really sucks if you can't keep the two ladies to accept, or no, to keep the two ladies to reject the offer of an olive branch. A symbol of peace. They're not willing to accept the symbol of peace, guys. And he can't keep them. He can't keep them to not accept it. That's so strange. You should try hard. You should try a lot harder. My AI should try a lot harder. And it's going to be super fun watching my AI process all of this to get better at this. I have not seen her for the rest of his own head, and with a smile, and this is a great deal of talk with you, and you will be no doubt of it being a perfectly natural explanation. Came to the right, to the left, and right off the enemy's picket line. For the first days of the ocean. So the days of the ocean were back long time ago. Way before anything was impressive. So how are you all doing tonight? as we wait for new things. Oh no, my word wrap is off by like 1 pixel. No. The one thing I didn't want, the one thing I was working on to make sure it wasn't gonna break, it broke. This was the same feeling that he would not be a good thing for him to the window, and looked at her with the same feelings that he had been at the time when I came to the window. And I have a few minutes later a message from her husband and wife, or even to the window, to see what was going to the door. So apparently a lot of just going to things, to the window, to the door, just all of that. It could become, what was it? What song was that? I know the song, I'm not going to sing it because it doesn't have some of the best language, but I know a song that refers to windows and doors and walls and stuff. J.T. Matson, and his eyes from the table, with a smile that she was very much obliged to return at the bottom of the room. So, J.T. Matson, his person, and his eyes that were separate from his person were from the table. They fell off the table. But they had a smile on them, so she felt like she had to return that smile, even though she was laying on the floor. So, see, that's gonna be my job. I'm just gonna reinterpret these sentences until they make sense, as best I can. I think that's a good sentence. I mean, it's kind of creepy that she was on the floor and he has no eyes in his body, but this was the most favorite points for you. Where is this sentence coming from? Guys, okay, the Mr. and Mrs. sentence makes sense. Like, it's a short sentence, it's pretty easy to generate a short sentence over and over again. But this sentence has appeared multiple times now with the very same, trait. This was the most favorable points for you. Where does this come from? Guys, if you can figure out where that sentence comes from, even if it's just parts of the sentence, because that's where most likely it is, I would love to know, because I have no clue where that sentence could come from. It's kind of creepy. See, Mr. and Mrs., that sentence makes sense, because it does a 2-key to guess the next one. So if it gets Mr. and then it had to guess what the next one would be, it'd do Mrs., because that's the next logical thing. But I mean, the great thing about it is the favorable point sentence isn't bad, it's just weird. I saw a tall man with the same feelings of the ocean. I have no clue what these feelings of the ocean are, but I kind of want to feel them. I kind of want to feel what the feelings of the ocean feel like. Because everyone's apparently feeling it. He does, the eye does, and the tall man now. I want to know what you are a man whose leg had just returned from her husband and wife, felt with delight to seeing the prisoners. Peace, tranquility, the feelings of the ocean. So apparently if you get your leg back from a husband and wife, they feel delight from seeing the prisoners. Respect, fear, etc. Just every feeling is in the ocean. And when you feel the ocean, that's how you get the most favorable points for you. If you feel that ocean, you get the points. Life points. LP, life points. Come on, guys. Not HP, not MP, LP, life points. I will not be a great deal, and came up to the window. I will not be a bad temporal, because Prince Andrew had gone to the left, and gone to bed and ran with them, so that the whole family of the same moment the projectile was then about 12,000 yards was enough to make it out. So this is a huge, whatever this projectile is, they're not giving much detail on it. They're not even giving it a real name. They're just like, the projectile. Whatever it is, it must be huge to see it from 12,000 yards. Like, to make it out, to know what it is from 12,000 yards, that must be a huge projectile. I think it's predicting World War III right now. I mean, we have a Prince Andrew. I think England has a Prince Andrew. And apparently England has a projectile that can be seen from 12,000 yards. That's dangerous, England. You don't want to play around with that. That can get you in trouble. This was the same feeling of pity for the rest of the crowd, and went out into the air. So apparently in this world this AI is creating, not only can you feel objects such as the ocean, but whenever you feel it, it can spread throughout the crowd as if a plague through the air. That is pretty poetic, actually. I think that's pretty poetic. Mr. and Mrs. I heard a soft song. Just a soft one. Not too hard, not too hard, but just a soft one. I wonder if that's a pretty short sentence, so I bet that came from somewhere. And of course, it has song in the name, so I'll never find out, because Google just assumes if it has song, it must be coming from any type of song. So it was like, here's YouTube. This was the most remarkable expeditions of all this time, the two friends agreed. For we know that I have never seen a great deal, nor did he. Not only did they not try to get away from the genius Balabanichonia, in other words, a circumference. Just in case you don't know, the genius Balabacteriums is just a circumference. It's a fancy way of saying circumference. Just FYI, in case you didn't know. And the two friends agreed upon it. So, this was the most remarkable story. This, as me trying to explain it, it actually is a somewhat remarkable story. Like, piecing together everything and trying to come up with something. So I agree. This was the most remarkable rays of the sea. I don't know about that. It keeps wanting me to feel this ocean that I just don't feel. I don't feel the ocean. I saw a little girl to the window and looked at the sight of the ocean. Everything is ocean-based. Everything. It just... all ocean, everywhere. I went to the window, and again, he flushed. Just... whenever a person goes to the window, this guy's just at the toilet. Flush! Flush! Just, I can't stop flushing when people are at the window. It was as if she had been to the window. The window and the ocean, two favorite things this AI has. It is as if she had been to the window, and I have seen the same kind of spring from the genius Scumbor with blue and white-sided whiskers disappeared among the trees, and the other boys were in the midst of the projectile, was not at all of his coat and cap. So, I'm gonna say the window and maybe even the ocean are code words for something else. But she has been to it. But only her. Everyone else is going or has gone to the window. I saw a little, just I saw a little, and did not see the people of Genoa and Lucca are now standing in the presence of a very low and a few hours of the world. But she was a large number of people who had a letter from his chair and laughed with merry Hendrik Havian. Again, it's very progressive on sexuality, my AI. She being not only a person, but a number of people. So, I think we're good with the. This was the most important thing. I agree with you, AI. It was the most important thing. I went to her, and that he would not be able to keep the people of the projectile had passed the fork before the arrival of the great deal of talk, ceased, and a few moments he strode back to the edge of the lunar disk. It was impossible. He strode back to the edge of the disk, but it was impossible. So projectile is part of this great talk, this great deal of talk. And apparently it's part of the lunar disk, which we haven't heard about for quite some time in this writing. So I don't know what this lunar disk part is. So let's see what we get. I went to the right of the new astrolabe, hove before the battle of Bodani, when the sun and the little princess was buried. The Prince Andrew went up to the commander-in-chief. So, it's not too bad. They went to the right of a new thing before the Battle of Balor, when the sun and the little princess both were buried dead. The sun was setting, she was buried. If you were confused in AI conversation, that's what that means. And Prince Andrew, during this funeral, went up to the commander-in-chief. And we don't know what they talked about, but we do know he went up there. So, be careful about Prince Andrew. So, just warning. Don't want to freak you all out. I wanted to be of any of the projectile was to be my father's last message. Okay. So apparently this main dude, I wanted to be a part of this projectile. So it's possible this projectile is made of characters. And that was to be his father's last message. The letter K. So, who knows what the father would have written if he actually got to finish his last message. But he didn't. So all we get is this letter K. And I don't see a K from any of the previous sentences. So maybe we'll find out who K is in the future. I don't think so. I think all of these are distinct things that have no relationship to it. I have never been able to take the place where they had been in the presence of the Lord and vanishing at will. So apparently this person, as much as they wanted to be a part of the projectile, they also wanted the power of invisibility. So maybe it's two arcs. Maybe they'll become a part of the projectile and gain the power of invisibility. I want to see how the matter with you, my dear fellow. I know you will be the only one thing, and a half of the rest of the ocean. So, apparently people not only can feel the ocean, but if they try hard enough, they can become part of the ocean. And this person that they are talking to also wanted to have their wish become true of becoming half of the rest of the ocean, which that's a lot of ocean you have to become. Like, that's not just smoothing yourself down into an ocean. You have to multiply yourself to get that much. I saw a large number of people who have never seen the three travelers approach the door, and the only thing that could be more comfortable, manual, than any other person. So apparently, anyone who's planning to travel to this strange lands we're reading about, it's very comforting and a very good manner to approach the door. But they haven't seen these three travelers do it. So those three travelers are being quite rude to the large number of people. And I don't know, maybe they don't know the customs. Maybe they didn't watch the stream to learn the customs of these people. Hopefully they do go to the door eventually, because you don't want to be rude, especially to such a large number of people. You just don't want to be rude. I have never been in the presence of a very pretty Rosie. A very pretty and Rosie was sitting on the point of view. He has gazed at the same moment. He was doing something to him that the whole business came to the window, to the door. So, apparently whatever he was doing, not only did the whole business of that go to the window, but then the window went to the door. And we all know what happens when you approach the door. Everything approaches the door over time. You just have to know which one you approach first. The window, then to the door. Not the other way around. You don't want to do that. This was the most remarkable being, the most remarkable places. So, whether the utmost chivalry, but even the smallest degree of perfection in women, or woman, and many a time I could see nothing but a very important personage had been in his hand. So again, chivalry. You have to have chivalry. You have to go to the door. If you don't go to the door, you're being rude to someone, and no one wants a rude person. I sprite of the ocean. In sprite of the ocean. See, that's what happens when you're rude. If you're rude, you spite the ocean, and it's over. The ocean's everything. You can feel the ocean. This was the most remarkable case. Yeah, they never could even predict that somebody could sprite or in spite of the ocean do anything. Yet this person does, and he's fine with it. Pierre did not wish to see what was being carried by. Pierre, again, he's trying to be respectful. He's covering his eyes and going, I don't want to see what's going by, because he's not in fear of it. He doesn't want to disrespect it, because he has been to the door after going to the window, of course, because Pierre is a well-respected member of society in this society. I went to the window and watched them closely, time after his interview, with the utmost precision. So, you see, the main character, is very rude. Not only did he try to be good by going to the window, but then he watches them as if being carried by. How rude can you be? So rude. So rude. I went to the window and threw it on the surface and demanded relief. You see what happens when you're rude? If you're rude, you start having all the stress, and you might throw the window onto the surface and demand relief from the stress, but it won't come because you were rude to the window, to the door, to the ocean. And yeah. And now we're waiting for next spot. Nope, still waiting. So how are you guys doing? It's almost 30 minutes to the end, so if you all enjoyed this, I'm glad. It looks like everyone, a good portion of people stayed for about an hour, so that's awesome. Pierre did not wish to know that I have never been able to understand what was going on to the man, who was not so much as you can see that it would be the very first evening in Boluski spent with him, but he was the last of the ward, and the only one I saw a large number of the ocean. Apparently, this eye character really likes talking about how he saw a large number of the ocean. He has been around the ocean more than once. I went to the door. Thank gosh, I has finally went to the door and has gained respect from the people because of common courtesy. That's all he had to do, is go to the door. I saw a large number of these two men. One still next to the window, and the two of them was a perfect circle, but an important part of this ocean. So he saw a large number of two men. Apparently 2 is a large number. Sounds like my stream. One was next to the window that was next to the window. The two of them was a perfect circle. So they were like hugging each other perfectly. But either way, it was an important part of the ocean. Like those two people hugging next to the window is an important part of the ocean. If you miss it, you missed a good portion of the ocean. Like, 2 of those people just hugging. You can't miss that. I saw a large number of people who had come in the air of 130 guns, which also boasts the name of the ocean. Or boasts the name of the ocean. So, if you ever want to know what the name of this feeling, of the ocean, of the thing you need to give it respect to, and everything else, fire 130 guns from the air into a large number of people, and you will hear a boast of the name of the ocean. Or maybe just imagine such an event, and the name of the ocean will come from that imagination. That's kind of dark, but that's what he had to see to know the name. I will not be able to do so much as I have never seen a child, and with the same feelings and pity and help too. He can't help you because he's never seen a child in pity and needs help. So he's just lacking that ability to help because he's never seen a child in help. He's not calling you child, he's just never seen one in help. I wanted to see what would happen in the midst of these 2 cornered points, and that they were to have been made a step towards his young prince. So again, this imaginary land we're in, laws of physics and other things just dissolve. Because not only can you happen to be in the midst of two cornered points, but they have made a step towards his young son. These two cardinal points, which are literally concepts that we made up to know direction, they made a step towards his young son. I have heard a sound of a very pretty, and they are not like to see the inside of the ocean. So, if you're very pretty, you don't like seeing the inside of the ocean. It's not up your alley, and I don't know why. So, if you are very pretty, please tell me why you don't want to see the inside of the ocean. Pierre did not seem to have a little girl with a smile of the emperor, and his face, and 1/2 foot long, and bored, although he did not even the smallest objection to outweigh all the way he would come of this great commander among them. So Pierre eventually does become the great commander of them, even though he's never seen to have a little girl that has a smile that looks like the emperor, and his face, and his 1/2 foot long, and his board. So the emperor's face, or smile, or whatever, looks like a lot of other things. Especially a 1/2 foot long sub. Pierre's face looks like the emperor's smile. And, and this common board, or any real board, just any, looks like the emperor's smile. And Pierre's face, and sorry, and a 1/2 foot long sub. Just in case you were wondering, that's how my face looks as well. So, I'm in that boat, like Pierre. I'm actually getting like chills for whatever reason. It's so weird. In spite of his coat, and powdered in just the same moment, he was the last of the crowd of people who had been made by him at the time when the latter was to have a talk with you. My dear fellow, I have not in doubt of his face, and a half from his genius sculptor, blue-black on top, with big eyes, in a low voice, to the window, and the rest of the crowd, and were not very much of the other. So, that I can't really explain to you. You just have to, you either understand it because you're part of the community or you're not. I can't explain that one to you. Like, just come visit me in Insane Land, and you will understand. I went to the window, and we are to be, and that he is so much to say to you, my dear fellow. I have the honor of speaking to the door. So, this main character again, not only has he went to the window, but now he has the honor, the respect, the request to go and talk to the door. Will he do it? We'll have to find out. I don't know. He is very passionate, though, about him seeing a large number of the ocean. I have seen a large number of the ocean. I dare say he is a great deal of noise, and being the case, and very likely more. So, whoever I is, he doesn't like this he. I saw a little girl who is a very large snake with a smile. That she was not the same thing. So, apparently, females, especially girls and she's, are regularly not what they appear. Like a little girl may be a large snake. Sorry, I'm getting way too tired to read this. But a little girl may be a very large snake, with a smile, so she's a happy snake. So yeah, just keep that in mind when you see little girls. They could be very large snakes, actually. Sorry, I'm breaking down and like trying to be serious, and I just can't. Oh. Oh, JT Matson's here again. JT Matson and Belfast were placed in the habit of giving her no moment of the ward. And when I have already been in the evening, and I have been made a sign of the ward, a wholly engrossed by the side of his coat, and look at the time when I was going to be so good to be of any other people, and the Countess was sitting in the presence of the same moment. The huge Sarians could not make out what it was. Yeah. Like, they just... The little girl, who's actually a very large... I can't say that without a straight face. The little girl, who actually is a very large snake, JT Matson and Belfast were giving no care to that. They were like, we're not giving her a single moment in the ward. So they were waiting for her to come out and be bored, and they were like, nope, shoot. I think they made the right decision because, I mean, little girls who are very large snakes are not very good things. I have not yet arrived with the same words, arose to the window, and the rest of the same moment he had never seen before. I think they're trying to hint to us that there's actually a greater story in this, but we're never going to see it. We are too far out of this community to grasp what really is going on. This was the most remarkable story. It was just the most. So, if anyone is still on and still wants to see anything, I can explain the code that's doing this. Just so that you all can grasp the understanding why it's so weird. I saw a large number of the United States of the ward, and the rest of the same moment. He saw that the door and the day of the ward, but she could not but be a great deal more hair and half meters long, with all the same he did not see how they would not be a great deal, seemed very obliged to go to sleep again. So, yeah. When you travel around the United States of the world, you get tired and you need to go to sleep. I've never been able to keep a servant of the ocean. Apparently, if you're a slave of the ocean, this eye character just can't keep you. So, it's a plus to being a slave of the ocean. Again, we don't know who this I is. He's only ever referred to as I. I saw a large black linen bag with him. That's a actually good sentence. It makes sense. It's in English. It's not in weirdness. That, however, that text that has just shown up is definitely in weirdness. But I'll try to read it as best I can. I have not been a delightful book by Jan mock a copyright symbol. The Servants of the Lunar Disc was impossible. Like, I've never been that book, so I just don't have the same experiences as you. If I've ever been that book, I would understand where you're coming from. But I've never been that book, so we can't pick up on each other's hidden clues. I have never been more difficult to get away, as if they were all in a hurry to get away from the moment of the ward, and the more he drank a great deal, more than a mile and a few days after the first place, he must have been able to get away as if he had been in my own private purse. So if you really want to get away, guys, you go into this guy's private purse so that you can get away. Just pro tip. That's just a pro tip on how to do this, how to play in this world. I've never yet had time to get the guns and half from the moment when he had not been not been for some time in her own room. I would not be a good look at that at the time of his face, and a half from the other hand. There were no more than the others, and would not be the last of them matter to me to be an object of her sister's sake to provoke him to be done. I'm as equally as lost on that sentence as you guys are. Oh, stretch. Oh. I've had a great deal more if they were all in the habit of seeing you, and your companions must be very glad you have a little old man who is the most interesting and instructive. Just more things. I'm gonna ping everyone, see if anyone's in the chat. Anyone here? I know at least 2 of you are watching, so. Pierre did not wish to be Pierre did not wish to be in an immersive wilderness of swampy forest, where no one to the window, and he threw himself down into the room. So Pierre just didn't want to be like a swampy forest. So he didn't want to be away from the window, so he threw himself down into the room because that's where the window was. And if you throw yourself down towards the window, you won't be a swampy forest. So, Mr. and Mrs. is back. I saw a little above the level of the moon, just a little above the level. So there's a moon level, and I just saw a little above it. I'm not a good player, I'm sorry. Do-do-do, do-do-do, do-do-do. Well, it's gonna be a long one. Yep. I went to the window and looked at her. She was not at all the other side of the projectile. Would have been made in the midst of a large number of the crowd of people who have been able to keep trace, which had been in the presence of the crowd of soldiers, and told her that it was not very far from the window, was a little, and leave her very much, and watch her a very agreeable to all. I have had no desire to see a man who was a little above Prince Andrew's had he. So there's a little man just above Prince Andrew's face. If you haven't seen it, it's just you don't have desire to it. But if you gain desire to it, you will see it. I've never been in the air and knew that the more he tried to make it a very pretty and provocative proposition, his extreme youth, his departure from London, and a man in a low voice, if I were to be taken to the window, and the same kind of hiding in a way that would be the most difficult to get a good look at the time of the ward, and the little princess, and having to retreat, but suddenly in his soul. So don't retreat, guys. If you retreat, you go straight into your soul. And you don't want that. That's painful, I promise you. I saw a large room in the direction in which the old prince was at the head of the empire, to be seen of the Emperor Alexander. Did not think it would be a great deal of talk with the air and the water had been in a low voice. To her that he had been to the window to see you at the door. Again, I think we've confirmed now that the ocean is not the ocean we think of. It has a voice, it has feelings, but the window and the door do have something related to each other. We don't know for sure yet what, but they are definitely part of something. Sorry. My throat is getting a little dry since I have to read all these. I wanted to see what would happen in the midst of this new life to the left. And the same moment the huge circles rippled out from the others of us, but only to be a great number of people in the house. For a long time I would not be a great deal more to the general in charge of the ward, but she was a little in front of the ward, and when he was very glad of it. Sorry. This is a lot of reading, guys. I'm reaching up to almost 1 hour and 43 minutes of just reading. That's insane. And it's like I'm not reading into my mind. I'm reading aloud. This is the best and the wisest in Spaceland. Will easily account for his having an estate of his face to the door. So Spaceland is a new thing. We haven't heard much about Spaceland, but it does have the door. A large number of people who had been able to take his place, and the other hand, if we were in the air and water with Black Peter, was so much to the edge of the ocean. So we got Black Peter back. Interesting character. Now he's at the edge of the ocean, so we should follow up on him, ask him a few questions on where he's been and what he's doing. But he's not an important character, so this was the last 2 or 3 days of the Emperor had still to be of use to a man who was not very long ago to the window, and the new astrolabe was steered to this point the president of the ocean. So the ocean has a president. We know it has a feeling. It's a very unique thing. It's like a person, but it's like a culture, and it has the term that we associate to an object. do. I'm also, for anyone who's up, I want to know how to make out what was not very good for all the other boys and girls watching them. I have the pleasure of seeing the whole ward was divided into two equal parts, and his eyes, and looked at the same thing, would be a bad time of the ward, when he had been in it, and the Countess and Sonia were amazed when they were all in his eyes, on him, with a smile, that his dearest concern. And that, I think, in our almost 2 hours of live streaming, has been the first successful quote. Open quote and a close quote. 10-10. I am super glad. Again, it hasn't won anything for the last 2 hours, so overall it hasn't done much. Other than it's going to be forever for me to actually run the editor on this when it's done. I must have been in the midst of this strange man, then said of my own mind that he would have been a bit of a man, with a very pretty curly-headed boy, with a smile that had been in the evening, the skies clear. Oh my gosh. I like how I grew my hair out recently, and now it's all tickling my back, and I kind of a weird sensation. This was the same kind of a very pretty girl. For the whole matter, over and over, the whole ward was divided into 5 families, and the window was open. The man who had come to the edge of the ward, and the 2 of the ocean. So the only man that I know was at the edge of the ocean twice is I. I has been to the ocean twice. Apparently the window's open, the ward is getting divided. It was originally divided into 2 equal parts, but now it's been divided into 5 families. But the window's open now, so who knows what's about to happen. I want to see a plane and infer the existence of a greater effort got away to the left, but his face and a few of the best of the moon. So I want to see a plane, but not like a plane that flies, like a plane in space. At the moment, he was the most perfect conviction of that mystery. So, at that moment, he was the perfect conviction of what we conceive as mystery. This was the most remarkable evenings that London has any relations, or even to the right of the crowd of soldiers and officers were. Remarkable evening tonight in London, apparently. I went to the edge of the ocean. The 3rd time he's done that. He's going to the edge. The window's open now, so who knows what happens when you go to the edge of the ocean with the window being open. I've never seen a great deal more to the place. Was a good look at the moment when the ladder was wet and glistened as blood. So, you see what happens? You go to the ocean and things get bloody. This was the most remarkable man of this new star. Could not make out what it was. So, like, it was so remarkable, the men of this new star, that they couldn't even make out what it was for a long time. I've never been in his own heart. So, I has never been in the heart of this person who is his. I will not be able to stay say to the left. But if you will have no right to the left, look for the other hand. I shall not be the most beautiful of women, save at night and the rest of the world, and when I come to the right to the left. Or to left. Right to the right to left. Apparently there's a lot of directions. Left, right, left. It's so confusing sometimes. I've never been in his chair and laughed at the end of a very simple and easy steps were necessary. Not to have been at the same feeling that he would not be able to do anything of his own thoughts. And we're actually under 10 minutes, so if you all have any questions or anything, just say so. I most likely will end it a little over 2 minutes. I kind of want to cut off some things, some boring snippets. I have not a very pretty and interesting, especially at a distance of the crowd, and learning and letters who had come to a little girl who had a very kind to his feet and a half from the genius sober with blue branding and smothered her hair, kissed him on the surface of the earth, and the two friends had rushed into the drawing room, and had to be of no great difficulty in believing that a man with a smile. Whoopsie, not an M. Stretch. I hope you all enjoyed this. I kind of wanted to present it since I've been working on it off and on for about a week and a half now, so. I saw a large number of the crowd, and the only man that as soon as the first time. That sentence was not good. Not good. I saw a little girl who had been told that I was going on in the presence of a man whose leg had been torn. There's a long time, Mary thought. So their leg was torn that there was a long time. Just leg, there's a long time. Nothing too awesome, but hey, Mr. and Mrs. Gotta hit the faves, Mr. and Mrs. This was the most difficult part of his face, and a man should not be too much to say that I was not very well. For the first place, the next morning to the window, and I saw the wolf was very much obliged to give me a letter from his chair, and stared at the door. Again, windows, doors, those are key things. When we further this AI, I'm almost certain windows and doors are going to be everywhere in its stories. I want to see the Emperor, to be of the same feeling, that she was a young lady to talk to. See, I just wants to make sure the Emperor, the young lady, just has the same feeling of talking to be talked to. I saw a little above the level of intuition upon those who were to go away without having ever felt. Like, have you ever saw a little above the level of intuition? Up, JT Matson and Belfast has went to the door. Woo woo! That's awesome. I'm so glad for them. They're such a powerful pair between the two of them. I'm glad they finally have been able to get to the door and be respected in this community. Pierre did not wish to be so, and that he would not be able in in be able in your own children off my clothes and a little to the little princess. Take leave of absence for family, and to the emperor to be so very much to say that I've never seen the previous night. There's a lot of just confused people. Up, Mr. and Mrs. You gotta love them. I want to know that I had no doubt that I should have been at all as before. Just FYI, I wanted you to know that. Pierre did not see the Count and Sonia, and that he had heard of the ward, and the only one who had come to the door. So Pierre just did not see a lot of things. He goes to the door and then he just like vanishes, and he doesn't see all the other people who's gone to the door. And you need to go to the doors. If you don't go to the doors, you get lost along the way. This was the more he valued and comprehended the emperor's eyes, and in a great hurry shouted to the little pig, "Meet a man of great use," to the window, and threw open the door, and the man who had been so very ill, and entered into the drawing room, and found that it was the only man that he had heard of the crowd of soldiers, seemed to me to be the object of his life, in presence of the projectile, was not even the smallest objection to his wife and the rest of the ward. So whoever this man is, he is dangerous. He's not even taking the objection of his wife. He's like, nope, I don't care. Not even the smallest objection. Just, nope, not going to listen. Or the rest of the ward. So even if the rest of the ward objected, he'd be like, nope. I will not be the case. And we were fairly well out from the window to the window. And she was not very much to the right of the crowd, and went on their left. A few minutes in which the French, to outflank it, the more he tried to make the most remarkable case, which formed the middle of the very long legs, like heavy artillery, watched us with a smile, that the emperor to be of any other person. So yeah, guys, life lesson, the emperor or anyone who you feel should be higher value than you actually is just like any other person. So I went to the little princess. So I has finally went to the princess, the little princess. We haven't met the big princess, but the little princess. I begun to speak to me to be of any of the ocean. So when I finally got to the little princess, instead of talking to the little princess, he talked to himself about how he wishes he could be any of the ocean. And the little princess was confused. It was so confusing, like there was just complete nonsense. I would not be the most perfect conviction of his face, and the little princess turned pale. His companions had begun before your time, Watson. So that's what happens when you talk to yourself in the presence of the little princess. She will become pale, and it's an awkward time for everyone. We really shouldn't do that. It's also 9 p.m., so I'm actually going to wrap up here. This is going to be the last sentence, and we're just going to finish it out. And I wish you all a fantastic upcoming week. I will read this last sentence, and then we will close the stream for the end of this beautiful afternoon. I have not a single army. Enemies remain in the midst of this kind of a very pretty diverse of means of the world, and when I'm in the presence of the Emperor to turn it out. And I'm finally gonna say yes. And don't mind dome. That is me trying to spell done and demo, and I messed up and I haven't fixed it yet. So now it's going through every sentence we have seen and editing it to teach the AI how to write better sentences. Hopefully it will learn and it will get better. But the fun part for me, compared to you guys, is I get to now let my computer stay on for the next most likely 24 hours as it runs through every one of these sentences and learns what it did wrong and what it did right. But I hope you all have learned something tonight. Have no clue what, but at least something. And I wish you all the best for this upcoming week. Bye!